At the crossroads of three continents, in a land sacred to billions, lies a nation with one of the longest, most turbulent, and remarkable histories known to mankind, Israel. The story begins over 4,000 years ago with a man named Abram, later Abraham, a wandering shepherd from Ur in Mesopotamia. According to the Hebrew Bible, God made a covenant with him, that his descendants would inherit the land of Canaan. The Israelites, Abraham's descendants through Isaac and Jacob, gradually established themselves in the land. After centuries, they formed a kingdom. Around 1000 BCE, King David established Jerusalem as his capital. His son, Solomon, built the first temple, a spiritual center for the Jewish people. But the glory days were brief. In 586 BCE, the Babylonians destroyed the temple and exiled the Jews to Babylon. A pattern of conquest and return would define Jewish history for centuries. Under Persian rule, Jews returned and rebuilt the temple. But subsequent empires, Greeks, then Romans, would test their autonomy. In 70 CE, the Romans crushed a Jewish revolt and destroyed the Second Temple. Thousands were killed or enslaved. The Jewish diaspora had begun. For nearly 2 millennia, Jews lived as minorities across the globe, in Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. They faced both prosperity and persecution. Despite exile, Jewish identity endured. Through Torah study, language, and ritual, they kept alive the dream of returning to Zion. From the Spanish Inquisition to the pogroms of Eastern Europe, Jews were often scapegoated and displaced, yet they survived, adapted, and remembered. In the 19th century, as nationalism spread, a new idea emerged among Jews, Zionism. Led by figures like Theodor Herzl, it called for a return to their ancestral homeland. Waves of Jewish immigration to Ottoman Palestine began. They farmed, built schools, revived Hebrew, and dreamed of sovereignty. After World War I, Britain took control of Palestine. In 1917, the Balfour Declaration expressed support for a national home for the Jewish people, but also sowed tensions with Arab communities. The Holocaust decimated European Jewry. Survivors, traumatized and homeless, pressed harder for a state. In 1947, the UN proposed partitioning Palestine into Jewish and Arab states. The Jews accepted. The Arabs did not. On May 14, 1948, David Ben-Gurion proclaimed the State of Israel. Within hours, neighboring Arab armies invaded. Against all odds, Israel survived the War of Independence. But it came at a cost. Over 700,000 Palestinians became refugees, an issue still unresolved. Israel fought repeated wars, the Suez Crisis in 1956, the Six-Day War in 1967, where it captured East Jerusalem, the West Bank, Gaza, Sinai, and Golan Heights, and the Yom Kippur War in 1973. While under threat, Israel also grew rapidly, absorbing Jewish immigrants from around the world and transforming into a regional economic power. There were moments of peace. In 1979, Egypt recognized Israel. In the 1990s, the Oslo Accords promised hope with the Palestinians. But violence, mistrust, and politics shattered progress. Today, Israel is a democracy, a global leader in technology and science, and home to over 9 million people, Jews, Arabs, Christians, and Druze. But challenges remain. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict continues to fuel global debate, as efforts for a two-state solution stall. Recent years saw normalization with some Arab states, a sign of shifting alliances. Yet peace with the Palestinians remains elusive. Amid conflict and complexity, Israel thrives, a nation rooted in ancient faith, forged in modern struggle, and still writing its story. The history of Israel is not just the tale of one nation. It is a mirror of humanity's endurance, belief, and hope. And the story is far from over. Israel, 4,000 years of history. One people. One land. One story. The story of Israel begins in the mists of antiquity, nearly 2 millennia before Rome, before Islam, before even classical Greece. Around 2000 BCE, a man named Abram, later Abraham, left his home in Ur of Mesopotamia, believing in a divine voice that promised a land, a legacy, and a people. To your descendants I will give this land. Genesis 12 verse 7, that land was Canaan, and the promise would become the cornerstone of the Jewish faith, and of Jewish identity. From Abraham came Isaac, then Jacob, Israel, whose 12 sons would become the 12 tribes, the ancestors of the children of Israel. The Israelites' bondage in Egypt and deliverance under Moses is one of the most powerful liberation narratives in human history. Their journey to Sinai, the giving of the Torah, and their entry into the promised land laid the foundation for a people defined not only by land, but by law and covenant, a shared memory of exile, redemption, and divine purpose. In the 10th century BCE, King David established Jerusalem as his capital. His son, Solomon, built the first temple, the physical and spiritual center of the Jewish people. This was Israel's golden age, a united kingdom, a holy capital, and a nation under divine and royal rule. But it would not last. In 586 BCE, Babylon destroyed the temple, exiling the Jews. In 538 BCE, under Persian rule, they returned, and rebuilt the Second Temple. Then came Greek rule, Roman occupation, and finally, in 70 CE, the destruction of the Second Temple and the start of the Jewish diaspora. For nearly 2,000 years, the Jewish people were stateless, living as minorities across Europe, the Middle East, North Africa, and beyond. They spoke many languages. They wore the clothes of many cultures. They adapted to many lands, but they remained one people, linked by Torah and tradition, Hebrew prayers and holidays, memory of the temple, and the unshaken phrase, "Next year in Jerusalem." They suffered persecution, pogroms, and inquisition. They also contributed to science, philosophy, music, and commerce, but always, at the core of their identity, remained the idea of a return, not just to a place, but to self-determination. The land of Israel, Eretz Yisrael, is more than territory. It is symbol, sanctuary, and soul. It is the land where Abraham walked, prophets preached, kings ruled, temples stood, and Messiah is still awaited. Despite exile, Jews always returned, in trickles and waves, over centuries. In the 19th century, the return became a movement, Zionism. In 1948, it became a state, the modern rebirth of Israel after the Holocaust. Against all odds, today, Israel is home to over 7 million Jews, as well as Arab citizens, Christians, Druze, and others. It is at once ancient homeland and modern melting pot, with a spiritual gravity that transcends politics. The story of Israel is not linear, it is layered. It is a spiritual saga of covenant and commandments, historical epic of exodus and exile, a modern drama of war, immigration, revival, and innovation. It is told in scrolls and archives, in songs and startup pitches, in synagogue chants and battlefield silence. It is carried by Holocaust survivors planting vines on kibbutzim, young soldiers patrolling ancient ruins, religious scholars and secular poets, mothers lighting Shabbat candles in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. It is both tribal and universal, filled with paradox and promise. Israel, 4,000 years of history. One people. One land. One story. It is not a slogan. It is a summary of endurance. It means a people that remembers who they were, and who they want to become, a land that has seen conquest, covenant, catastrophe, and creation, a story that binds past to present, and continues forward, written by every new generation. Israel is not finished, it is not flawless, but it is alive, ancient in roots, modern in rhythm, and forever in motion. The story is not over. It is just beginning. Again.